Hello and welcome back to the Secret Lair MTG Arena Weekly Podcast. My name is Daniel Guajardo, and along here with me is my co-host, Mr.
Walsh, Steve Walsh.
Mr. Steve Walsh, or not Mr., but I'm going to keep calling him Mr. He got upset about that last time.
That's true.
Last weekend was a big weekend. We had a lot of tournaments going on. We had the Arena Open, we had the championships. And we don't have a lot going on next weekend, so we're not really getting prepared or going over anything that we could be playing on Arena next weekend. So we're going to just kind of discuss what happened last weekend and talk about the winners and whatnot. But first, we're going to talk about the big news that dropped, and that was the Alchemy news. Steve, you want to run us through some of this and what this is all about?
All right, there's a lot to unpack here, but we're going to try and do it quick so we don't lose anybody to the snores. All right, Alchemy is a new thing that Wizards is trying on Arena. The basic rundown of Alchemy is this. Every time a new set comes out, about 30 days after that, the Alchemy set that goes with it will come out. And in those Alchemy sets, you'll have approximately 60 to 65 new to digital cards, which means like cards such as, just for instance, we're going to touch on the top right here, but we're actually not going to go over too many of these cards today. We're going to wait until next week to do it. But cards such as, let's start with Angel of Eternal Dawn. When it enters the battlefield, it becomes day. It can't become night. Your opponents can't cast spells with mana value greater than the number of turns they have begun. So things that are much easier to track in digital and digital only mechanics such as Conjure and Draft as a mechanic or Perpetual as a mechanic. Cards with those mechanics in mind will be coming out directly to Arena, and they'll only be available to use on Arena. So with all those new digital cards, they're also going to be doing some rebalancing of cards that are in Standard, such as, and I have more here. Let's take the biggest rebalance that they're going to take effect to is like Alrund's Epiphany here. So what they're going to do is they're going to rebalance these cards and make them bring their power level either down or in some cases up to make things a little bit more balanced. And it kind of gives your standard environment an added freshness to it. So we'll play with the tabletop cards for a month, and then Alchemy will come out, and there'll be separate Alchemy packs that you can acquire. And out of these packs will come the new to digital only cards, plus some, but we don't know exactly how many, rebalance cards. Example of that is here, Alrund's Epiphany. Like the old version is, Foretell 6, whenever you cast it, you make 2 birds and take an extra turn. The balanced version that they have suggested is Foretell 7 now, and that if you don't cast it from Foretell, you don't get the birds. You still get the extra turn, but you don't get the birds. There'll be a couple more examples of this, like they want to rebalance Seeker's Chariot to give you 1 cat, but crew 2, and the list keeps going on and on. One of the buffs is like Cosmos Elixir. Now it gains you 2 life and scries a card. So, yeah, it's draw a card, but you also add the scry, so they add a little bit more to it to get you to play with that a little bit more. We'll just have to see what the balance changes do. Another thing that they kind of announced is that the Alchemy cards will rotate with the standard cards when they rotate, but when they rotate into Historic, they'll be the balanced versions of cards. So when Alrund's Epiphany rotates into Historic, it will no longer be Foretell 6, it'll be Foretell 7. Because Historic and Alchemy Standard are what they consider to be, air quotes, live sets, which are sets that they can digitally adjust, similar to other online TCGs.
So that's the part that I don't know about. All right, so I guess question maybe, if in case I'm not sure if you know for sure, while it's in Standard, is the Standard version what's allowed in Historic?
So there will be 2 different formats that deal with Standard. There'll be traditional tabletop Standard, which will be exact copies of the paper cards.
Yep.
And there will be Alchemy Standard.
Well, I'm talking about historic though. So while something is
Historic.
legal in standard on arena and alchemy standard on arena, which one of those cards is legal in historic at that time? Or are they both legal until rotation and then only the alchemy card is legal after?
Only the alchemy card. So only the alchemy card will match the card in historic. So new set comes out.
Yep.
Those cards are legal in historic as they are printed.
Yes.
Until the alchemy set comes out. When the alchemy set comes out, whatever version you have revert in historic turns into the alchemy version. So let's say you have old Alvin's Epiphany in historic. I know it's a little confusing. It's really hard to take. You'll get used to it after a while, but so like right now, if you're playing with a 6-mana foretell Alvin's Epiphany, when alchemy drops, which should be on the 9th, so 3 days, enjoy casting Alvin's Epiphany for 6.
Yeah.
In 3 days, when alchemy comes out and things are rebalanced, all the cards that are rebalanced will change in historic. So if you're playing Alvin's Epiphany, taking turns combo in historic right now, your Alvin's Epiphanies are going to change in 3 days.
I think that's just awful, to be honest. Like, if they're trying to, like,
I agree entirely. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
I agree entirely in that sense. They're trying to fix, at least, and this isn't direct from Wizards, this is just kind of me speculating at this point, but it feels like they're trying to fix the standard format, because if you really think about it, standard has been awful before arena was a thing. Standard has been awful, in my opinion, since cons rotated out. Like,
that was the last time it was probably really, really fun, but that's also because it didn't feel like standard because we had all fetches.
Oh, it wasn't so much fetches, but like you had a multiple three color decks and there were multiple decks to play. But since then, like standard has boiled down really, really fast. And this was pre-arena.
So
I just
we did have like Eldrazi standard too, when we had Eldrazi winter for modern. That was kind of fun because there was ramp decks and we hadn't seen any ramp be played for a while. And yeah, I don't know, it hasn't been the best. I get what you're saying.
Standard just has, and it's because it is a small set of cards. Standard has the issue where it comes out and for like 2 weeks, it's really fun. It's kind of fresh, but then it gets solved for the most part, and then it's stale for so long. Well, this feels like their attempt to kind of fix that, right?
Mm-hmm. I think MTG Online first, and then definitely Arena is a huge part of that problem, though, because before Arena, it took longer to solve formats. And I remember still going to the LGSs and stuff. You could still come up with decks that weren't being played on MTGO because most people were focused on the like modern and legacy formats on MTGO. But once Arena came out, I felt like I went to opens, like SEG opens, week ones and stuff, and format felt like it was almost figured out certain times because so many Arena games had been played and you have access to all the information. And it did kind of take some of the fun away from it.
I mean, yeah, but I think that's just more of an added effect of like the modern age of Magic.
Sure. So my only issue with this is if the alchemy cards are going to work like that for that 30-day period, Wizards, I know, is not going to pay attention to any sort of tournament organization unless it's organized by them. And even by them, I'm sure they'll miss it and make this mistake to where you're going to like get your cards powered down or powered up or swapped 7 days before a tournament or something like that. And now they split the championship, half historic, half standard. So until it affects those guys and they throw, like, whoa, hold on, and like make a big thing about it, I have a feeling this is just going to kind of mess with everybody, especially with any other kind of organizers of tournaments that have been using Arena as the platform.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there, but I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna be cautiously optimistic here.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea of keeping standard fresh and interesting. I'm a paper boomer, so I'm not a big fan of the digital only cards, and I don't like having to keep track of multiple collections like via paper and then digital.
Yeah.
That being said, Alchemy fixes the issue where if something is completely busted or unbalanced, we don't have to sit with it for 3 weeks before it gets banned and leaves that feel bad taste in your mouth because something got banned.
Yeah.
This fixes that. Now, as far as economy issues, and that's a whole nother thing. The arena economy, short snippet, is actually awful. I don't mind playing Magic. I've loved playing this game. I've been playing for 23 years. The arena economy is unforgivably bad. It's really predatory, and that part I cannot get behind the way they've set that up. But I can't really do anything about it either. So
It's just
beyond that,
drain.
yeah, it's why can't I just buy singles? Why can't I just, if I see a deck somebody wants to play, how do I acquire that deck? I have to go online and spend double and even triple the value of that deck to acquire enough wild cards or cards in general to actually be able to craft that deck. And then what happens if that deck is bad in a week or something gets banned out of it?
And you don't get the same feeling like you had to do the same thing in paper, but you had the opportunity to buy singles. And also, even if you didn't have the opportunity to buy singles or your LGS didn't have the singles, you still got those little like, so opening a pack of cards is the same as scratching a lottery ticket, where it's a rush. It can be an addiction because you get a dopamine hit. So like there's still, it's fun to some people just to crack packs. It's not fun to crack a digital pack.
No, in fact, you actually, and I don't know if anybody else does this, but I won't crack packs until I get at least 10 of them, so I can just click the open 10 to like speed the process along.
Yeah, like it's boring. I'd rather like not do it. Like it just wastes time. I don't feel any fun from it. I'm just like, hurry up. And even if I hit the best card in the set, I'm like, hurry up. I don't care. Like
legitimate quality of life improvement. Wizards, if you're listening, just give us a button that says open all packs. Just let me open everything so I can just go through it much quicker.
Don't they have that on the Pokemon platform?
I don't know.
I think they do.
Dude, I am way too old to be able to follow that platform too.
Well, I have a kid that age, so I was trying to
figure it out
for him. Yeah, but yeah. So Alchemy, confusing, but we should be optimistic because hopefully this would
cautiously optimistic. It'll keep standard fresh, I think, but we'll just have to see what it does.
Yeah. Another thing that we hadn't touched on the show that I think was probably the second piece of biggest news that's come from Wizards is I'm pretty excited about the numbered cards coming from like the sports world.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, really? Oh, so
yeah. News to me, man.
Oh yeah, so the sports world has you can hop over to Arena if you want, so we can get into the next stuff after that. But I'll just run through this real quick for anybody who hasn't heard of it. I'm sure most people hopefully have or have seen something. A card was leaked that came out online that had a number in the bottom right corner, and it said 1 of 100. It was a foil card. I don't even believe this was a good card.
It's Viscera Seer, correct?
Yes, it was Viscera Seer. Okay.
Yeah, I do know about this. The backwards printing. Viscera Seers, they're vampires, so if you look at them in the mirror, you can see them. But then it's kind of a vampire thing. But yeah, I know what you mean. There's only 1 of 100 foil backwards text backwards text Viscera Seers in the world. They come out in Secret Lair drops, I believe.
Yes. So I think that's where they might be testing this. I don't know if that's the only place that we're going to see these numbered cards. And there's a different word for the numbered cards that they use in the sports world, but I haven't been into that for a while. But it's really cool, I think, because it gives you something incredibly rare if you were to ever crack it or get one. But at the same time, people already felt bad about the lottery cards, like when there was one per case.
Yeah,
because as a Magic player, we've always known that like we could always get anything, and that's changing a lot. And I know it's affecting a lot of at least the older players. Like you used to be able to play, generate value through trades, trade into duels, whatever you were going to be able to trade into the oldest cards to play the oldest formats, and that kind of disappeared a couple of years ago to where it's impossible to trade into vintage. But
I mean, that's mostly because the reserve list exists.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So then people, I think they enjoyed the what they call them, not the invocations, the original ones, the expeditions.
The masterpieces, invocations.
Expedition. Yeah, those three. Yeah. And then
Yeah,
they
I
did
know.
some box toppers, and people were really enjoying those. They were lottery cards still, but they were fun to crack packs to try to get them. And those were still things you could trade into. They had higher value, yada yada. And then they started doing it with every set with the collectors things. So then those kind of lost their special uniqueness. And now they're, when everything's unique, nothing's unique. And now they're going to this numbered system though, to where I think this is going to be really cool if they don't mess it up again, because they have to leave it. It has to
That,
be unique.
they have to resist the urge to flood the market with a bunch of unique things.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
it is interesting that it's like a pseudo workaround to the reserve list, because they're allowed to print as many copies of Viscera Seer as they want, but there will only be 100 of this version of Viscera Seer.
Yes, it's adding cards to the reserve list in a sense.
I mean, yes and no. So the reserve list, the biggest issue a lot of people have is that like they put themselves, and this was to avoid, they put themselves in a corner as far as they wanted to avoid what happened with Chronicles when Chronicles originally came out, because
Yeah.
that just completely cratered and nearly killed Magic.
Put people out of
They,
business.
yeah, they wanted to avoid what happened in the comic book and sports card world, where everything got printed into oblivion in the 90s, and literally everything, or like 99.9% of everything that was printed in the 90s isn't worth the paper it's printed on right now.
Yeah, there's very, very few things that transcend that. But
so, 28 years ago or whatever, when Magic came out, they came up with the reserve list, which is like a, hey, look, and for those of you that don't know, but I can only imagine it's a handful of you, basically it's, hey, look, we're going to print this card, and then we're never going to print it again, and we're not going to print a functional reprint of the card. Like, we're not going to print Wrath of God and then change the text on it. But Wrath of God wasn't on the reserve list, hence we have Day of Judgment and infinite other 4-mana Wraths.
Yeah, it was a promise.
It was a promise, and at the time was a great fix. It allowed Magic to succeed, and the reason the reserve list went into place in the first place was because of Chronicles. Because when Chronicles came out, it like you said, it collapsed a lot of stores because their cards were basically worthless, and they printed. Chronicles was basically print on demand. So if somebody wanted the box, they would just print them a box, and it got to the point where cards were getting worthless. So Wizards comes out with a reserve list, which was a good idea at the time, but now it's to the point where
look
I'm
at
on the other side.
The financial aspect of any card game that's collectible, and what one has the largest amount of value, the largest amount of collectors. They gave them something to go after that felt safer of an investment. We saw Pokemon rise and crash, and we've seen it happen twice now, or 3 times since 2017 with Pokemon Go and all that stuff. It's gone through these huge dips and stuff, but in 2020 when everything did, and now look at Pokemon now, it crashed all the way back down when people saw the population counts for PSA or CGC. Well, CGC doesn't really have pop counts, but PSA and BGS and stuff like that. The reason people can that still buy into the reserve list, and they'll spend a ton of money on an 8.0 beta card or an 8.5 beta card, because they know exactly of how many of those exist, or if there's any different number than what they know it's less. People thought that there were only so many base set Charizards, even though it was printed 4 times or whatever, and then when they see like 8,000 of them, they become a lot less valuable. If there are 8,000 that got graded at like a 9 or higher, then there's probably another 8,000 that are less. Like, and it's not valuable at that point.
Excuse me. I fall on the other side of that argument, where I think the reserve list is inherently bad for Magic, because it puts themselves at a point where like people can't play with those older cards anymore. Essentially, like, Black Lotus exists, everybody knows it exists. How many people actually get to cast and use a Black Lotus? None of them. You don't get that iconic feeling that you got when Magic first came out. I do agree that there should be some collectability sense to it, and right now, like, I think the value in the reserve list cards isn't because they're on the reserve list. It's just they're 28 to 30-year-old Magic cards. Like, there just weren't as many that existed. They could print a paper Lotus right now, and it really wouldn't affect the value of Lotus and an Alpha or Beta Lotus, because those are just super rare.
So we kind of argued this before. in different ways. Like they reprinted all the Power 9 on MTGO, so you can still play in vintage tournaments online. And they've done little workarounds in different ways. CE cards are allowed in 93, 94 or in old school and stuff like that. I've always thought like for any larger tournaments, if you really just want as many players as you can, and you don't want it to be a kind of like, for lack of a better term, just a pissing match, like look how expensive my deck is and all this or whatnot. You can just make it proxies legal for this tournament because we're here to play Magic. We're not here to, show each other $5,000 cards or $20,000 cards and ooh and ah over them, even though that's fun. But that doesn't have to be what that tournament's about. Like it's the same as comic books. They've reprinted the Amazing Fantasy 15 first appearance of Spider-Man 5 times or something like that. So you can buy a copy and read it if you want to read it. Doesn't mean that a first copy should be $5. That first copy holds that prestige just like an Alpha Lotus or a Beta Lotus.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and that's the fine line that Magic has to tiptoe. It's like, while we're a game where you collect game pieces to play with, we're also a collectible market. So there has to be that balance between the two. And I think we've hit the point where it's kind of lopsided in that like people cannot play with the older cards because they can't print them again.
Yeah,
now,
dual lands I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah, duels. The workaround is like you can play these formats on MTGO, but I mean it's definitely not the same. Casting a Lotus on MTGO is not the same as casting a Lotus in real life. It's just not as fun. You don't have that magic.
I agree. There's not a good workaround. I agree, but I don't know what it is, and that's actually not what we're here to talk about today. I think we ran away a bit getting into.
I mean, yeah, we're gonna get into it, but I mean, it's Magic. We're passionate about it. That's what's gonna happen.
That's true. So Alchemy, crazy stuff. Can't wait to check it out, and hopefully it's great. And let's move into last week's tournament results, though, and talk about some of these decks that we saw doing and performing well.
All right, last week we had. I'm just gonna dive right in.
Yeah.
Last week we had the Innistrad Set Championships, won by Japan's own Yuki Ichikawa, and I figured today we would do a little spotlight of both the decks that he played in both Standard and Historic. And we'll just jump off into Standard right now, if you don't mind.
Oh, I don't mind. No.
Hey, everybody. Look, it's Blue-Red Epiphany. Are you surprised? Me too.
I'm trying to see if there's a difference real quick.
I mean, it's Yuki's a master, so there's that.
Well, sure.
But this is essentially that bridge gap that we talked about in the other episodes, where they figured out a way to kind of like push all the advantages these blue-red decks had together into this variant. So
I would like to point out really quick, in this deck and in his other list, because I've looked at it, there are tons and tons of different one-ofs. And when I played all the time in going to tournaments, our team, including Walsh, would give me so much crap for my one-ofs. But this guy just took down both these tournaments with one-ofs in so many different areas of both these decks. Just look at all these.
Easy, Tex. He was playing in an open deckless format where a bunch of one-ofs give you an advantage. You were playing one-ofs just to play gotcha game with some people sometimes.
Sure. He did have that, but whatever.
Looking past the facts, look, this supports my argument. I was right. You
the percentage difference isn't as much as you're making it seem. The one-ofs are still great.
I mean, with the blue-red deck in general, like one-ofs, because you see a large amount of your deck because this card is broken.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, Expressive Iteration is... Oh, this card is just the reason these decks work.
Yeah.
This is the best card draw spell they have printed in forever.
All those color pairs from this set, different color pairs were really good. That this is the only one really getting a big amount of play, but the other, like, check out the other ones too.
Oh yeah, but like Iteration is this card is a 4-of. Play this card as a 4-of as often as you can until you can't anymore.
Right.
I can't argue it any other way than that. Iteration is busted, and it fuels these blue-red base decks. This deck in particular, it digs for your one-ofs. It finds you what you need.
Yeah.
This deck in general, I think this is the perfect balance of everything that the blue-red decks wanted.
Mm-hmm.
You're an excellent game one deck, and like between Lear and your one-off Hullbreaker Horror, you can move your numbers up and down post board like how you need to adjust for each matchup.
It took a lot of what we talked about over the last episode, even the one before too, how we were saying, you know, certain decks will play the Lear, certain decks will play, or they used to play Burn Down the House. Certain decks now are just the Hullbreaker deck. He saw the same thing and said, we don't need to be the certain deck. We just be all of them.
If I am correct, the Japanese team qualified like 8 players for the set championship,
Oh, wow.
and I think 4 of them made the top 8.
With this.
I think they were all on this list. Yes. Don't quote me on that. I'm not
Usually
sure.
they are, but yeah.
Yeah, and this was amazing. Yuki was awesome to watch because he was super animated and really entertaining during the tournament. As far as the sideboard goes, I think this is hands down the absolute best anti-aggro card in the format.
So good.
It's super hard to deal with, and then flipping it is trivial in a deck that is suspending cards, or sorry, foretelling cards and then casting them for cheaper, but still getting the advantage of the cost. So what I mean to say is, like, if you foretell a hold the multiverse, play a smoldering egg, and then cast it for its foretell cost, it counts as 4 instead of 2.
Yep. That's cool. What's check for traps? Actually,
a lot of these guys splash black in their deck, either for check for traps as a duress basically that you could find.
Okay.
Or they did it for, I'm gonna bring it up for you so you guys can see it. I believe it was go blank. Discard 2 cards, exile their graveyard. Yes. I saw a lot of them casting this in conjunction with Galvanic Iteration to eat 4 cards out of your opponent's hand and eat their whole graveyard to shut off like Lear. That card is specifically for this matchup.
So that card with Galvanic Iteration at 5 mana is literally just Mind Twist for 4.
It's really good.
It's banned and everything because of how crazy powerful.
Well, it's not Mind Twist. Mind Twist is random.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
There's a big difference. This is more of a mind sludge, if you will.
Sure, but it's still hitting your opponent for 4 cards, and if you have any way to accelerate mana of any sort, I don't know if they do that early, probably not. But
I mean, like unexpected windfall. Yeah,
that's true. You get some treasure. Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's so gross to just nuke 4 cards out of your opponent's hand.
Hey, it's usually game breaking.
Yeah.
And then they had 4 of the best answer spell in the format 5/0 because it actually answers Hullbreaker Horror. It's the only counter spell in the format, and it's not a counter because it returns. That actually returns this thing while it's on the stacks, and you have to deal with it.
I was thinking we'd see a lot less Hullbreaker Horror because I think more people are going to be on Divide by 0. It's better to have in your deck overall than have 4 Hullbreakers that just get divided.
A lot of the decks that played a lot of players that played the Is It Turnstile deck usually played like 1 main and maybe another one on the board, because while it is a good card, the format is balanced out to a point where it's not absolutely backbreaking, and it's not particularly good in the heavy aggressive matchups.
Yeah, well, I guess I should preface.
It's still a 7-mana card.
Preface the conversation as I think this is correct for the championship tournament. I don't think it's correct for daily use or playing on MTGA because so many people play different things. But
this deck is specifically built for a small field tournament.
Yes. So for people who don't maybe know or watch tons of coverage, there's a very big difference from decks that are built for a high level Magic tournament than there are even for a GP or a Star City Games Open, or definitely for your LCS or MTGA. And when we talk about things being correct, I suppose in this list, it would be referring to this high level tournament.
Yeah, this deck was specifically designed with, all right, I only have to beat 3 decks on the format, because You're going to a high level tournament. Basically everybody at that tournament is going to be playing one of essentially 3 decks: mono green, mono white, and this. This deck is built with that stuff in mind.
Yep. And thinking which one's going to be I'll see the most, and I assume they thought they were going to see blue red the most, having 4 divided by 0. So
if you mix together the total number of blue red decks and blue red variants in all in the metagame breakdown, I believe it came out to about 48% of the field was a blue red base deck.
Yes, that's a great call on their point then, or on their
because this card exists.
Yeah. So what was he playing in Historic? You want to move over onto the Historic?
Yeah, sure.
Did you say yes, sir? I think he said yeah, sure.
In Historic, he played a better version of what we talked about last week.
Yes.
So this is the food deck. They've cut the red out of it.
This is cool. I actually played this earlier today because when I saw the list, I was a huge fan of the Cauldron Familiar Witch's Oven, to the point to where I brought it into Pioneer as soon as I could and was playing with like Kalitas and old school Flip Liliana from Magic Origins, and had been a lot of fun. But when I saw this and I saw the meat hooks, and I was like, oh, this is sweet. Deadly Dispute.
This deck is hyper efficient and very good at what it does. And then it's also got everybody's most horrifying creature they've ever seen.
Ravenous
squirrel. The squirrel.
Well, that squirrel, there's a human hand in that tree.
Yeah, because he's ravenous. This card has impressed me more than most things in the deck, just because of how outrageously big this card gets. And if you go back and look at some of the Twitch clips, you can see of matches where it's green-black food mirrors, and both players have like a 40+ power squirrel on the battlefield, and they're triggering back and forth off of squirrel sacks and sacking food to bring back Cauldron Familiar and sacking them to the Witch's Oven, which is triggering meat hook massacres. It's really impressive how back and forth it goes, and this deck is like this is the grind deck, if you will. It's hard to beat this deck. Granted, they have a Graveyard Hate piece, kind of puts a big damper on it, but we're talking game 1 Graveyard Hate piece really isn't an option. And then after post board, you have things like Maelstrom Pulse, Mortality Spear, just generalized answers out of these black-green decks that it's hard to argue with not starting here at the very least in Historic. I think this deck gives you a lot of versatility, and because your deck is so unbelievably cheap on the mana cost, you're double spelling a Cern as early as turn 2, and then you're grinding out advantage because of Lurrus.
Yeah. The only thing I would say for what I learned from playing it, because I think I actually won like 3 or 4 matches in a row with it, that you hold some of your, like, if you look, you really only have like, I actually cut 2 Shambling Gas, so I only have like 9 ways to like win the game. I need meat hook massacres don't win if you have no creatures, and if they nuke your yard with like 3 cats in it or something, like it can be tough to actually win the game with. So I would just kind of hold up extra copies and not play them as quickly as I used to, and just start like trying to run through Witch's Oven. You don't need to. You just kind of hold that one in your hand and make sure you don't accidentally lose all of your win cons.
So don't overextend. Got it.
Yes.
Wise wisdoms.
Yeah, overextend on everything else, just not your creatures. You need the squirrel or the cat, one of the 2.
Yeah, watching this deck in action, it was just kind of gross. It's just like so much faster than its predecessor in Jund Food, and like your mana is way smoother because you have access to the enemy colored fastlands, and the ally colored fastlands don't exist on Arena yet.
Yeah. And you
Also,
actually don't have to worry about
Phyrexian Tower exists.
Yes. I don't know how many things exile directly off the battlefield. I know there's no path in this format and whatnot, but there are some cards, and I'm sure people will move to those if they need to kill the cats. But you have so many ways to sacrifice between Village Rides, Deadly Dispute, Witch's Oven, Phyrexian Tower, that almost those cards are all worthless. Like, they have to hit your yard.
Yeah, that's the thing. This deck just continually cycles through yards, and it uses that zone basically as an extension of their hand. And it's mostly just through like Cauldron of Familiar Witch's Oven, because
Mhm.
that's the only reoccurring thing. But those two cards together have, and as we saw in Standard, they have set up a dominating presence. It's really hard to push through damage in an aggro deck when they have a creature that just really doesn't ever stay dead, that completely blanks a lot of your guys most of the time.
Yeah, yeah, gains lots of life too. If you're,
Yeah,
no one's really playing any red right now, but the aggressive decks are weird in this format currently. But yeah, normally that would be a big plus.
yeah. You can play a good you can play a good grindy game against the life gain decks too, provided
Mhm.
that you can get things going before they get their combo on board. If they get their combo down game one, you're just kind of dead to it. You can
Mhm.
possibly push your way through it because triggering the revolt side of fatal push isn't that difficult out of this
Yeah.
deck. It's pretty trivial, in fact. But yeah, this is what he played.
Yeah, no, this is sweet. I hadn't seen this in Historic yet, so I got super excited.
I was super bummed I didn't get to see anybody playing my Esper Rights list. But to be fair, I didn't really share it with anybody either because
Yeah.
I was still working it out. I've got an updated version of that too if you want to check that out.
Yeah, sure, we can run through that real quick.
Oh, sure.
It's our your pet of the format right
It's
now,
my,
and
it's
something we
my
keep
pet
working on.
deck again. Yeah, just keep tuning it. I've got it to a point now where I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah.
So definitely before the fall. The big find this week was that Malevolent Hermit exists, and this card is just it's the card I needed for the control matchups that were just trying to counterspell you into oblivion.
Ah, okay.
Because you can disturb this guy and it just shuts everything off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than
Yeah,
that,
no, that's a cool card.
I changed the balance on the reanimate targets, but the deck as a whole is. I think this is the best list in this iteration going forward. The only changes that I would consider making would be swapping out some number of portable holes for something like a mortify or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly something that excuse me, man, that cleans up multiple cages. The only games I lost this week were games where I like thought seized my opponent and then they drew a cage or they cast two cages in the exact same turn.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's difficult to 1-for-1 via portable hole with that, but past that I haven't really had any problems with it. It's still doing pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, we'll keep checking on this deck as long as you're doing well with it. It'll be our deck of the show.
Well, I gotta find something else because I can't just keep tooting my own horn. I'll see if I can find something else in Historic I enjoy playing.
Sure, but if you're tuning it weekly, it's nice to give the updates. And if we're winning, and we'll start sharing our results. The more we go along and stuff too, especially the more we get through seasons and actually set some time aside. I know certain seasons I just grind and make sure I get
Oh
to
yeah,
mythic. Other seasons
and
I work. So
Historic's gonna get super wild here in a few days because we're about to get a whole bunch of new cards and things are gonna change via Alchemy. So I don't know.
sure.
We'll just have to see where it goes.
Yeah, no, that'll be super sweet. I'm excited for all the new changes. I'm worried a little bit, like we mentioned earlier, but I'll go with you. I liked your outlook on it to be cautiously
Cautiously
optimistic.
optimistic. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're just gonna repeat that line until we're
Yeah.
just like, all right, no longer optimistic, just high caution.
Well, if I can, I prefer to be optimistic. I hate being negative about stuff, especially something that's brand new. I've never seen it happen before. I want to be on the optimistic side, but I do want to proceed with caution. So I
I'm willing
like
to
the
give
term.
Wizards a chance. Yeah.
Yeah. One more time. No, just kidding.
Just the wheel keeps turning.
Yeah. So there is a mixed version of the Innistrad sets coming out that I heard about. I don't know too much about it, like when it's coming out, but I saw they're doing all black and white cards of the entire set and selling it as a combined set in paper. I don't know if we'll get any of those card arts.
I'm sure we'll get some kind of those skins. You're talking about Crimson Vow Midnight Hunt double feature.
The
right?
double feature. Yes.
I like the way the black white lands look on Arena.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was watching, I believe it was the NRG event last week, those lands are hyper obnoxious for coverage of live paper tournaments. It
Are you
is
talking about the ones that exist now, or
yes, the ones that exist now because they
Okay.
have the black-white basics.
yes, yeah.
They're full art black-white basics that are virtually indistinguishable from each other
Yeah.
in live paper, to the point where I think they made the players swap one out. Like if they were playing a 2-color limited deck,
Mm-hmm.
they gave them a distinguishable basic whenever a bunch of those were on the board, so you could figure out which lands were which.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That I really like them. I think they're beautiful. The
I
foil
think they're
ones especially,
gorgeous.
but
They are very gorgeous. They're heinous for coverage. So
no, I can see that they are all the same color. You just the symbol is the only differentiator, right? Besides the picture, but
yeah, and everything is black and white. It's so hard to figure out.
yeah, and all the pictures are all like evil versions of land, so they're all kind of like twisted and unless you know
They all
what it
look the
is.
same.
Yeah. Oh well, that's unfortunate, but
Yeah. The dream job in Magic at one point was just let's do coverage. I really want to do coverage, and now I do not envy a single caster having to do coverage for live tournaments. It's like, oh, what is this card? I don't know. There's 17 different versions of every card printed into the into every format. Good luck.
yeah, that would be. I didn't even think about that because yeah, nope, I'm not a fan of doing. Well, I'm a fan of picking the ones I like the most, but not having to know all of them.
Don't get me wrong. I really still want to play live Magic.
Oh yeah, I've been actually trying to at least go and play once a week, once every other week, just even if it's not a tournament. Like I went and played Commander last week, and that was fun. So I miss it. I want to get back to it, but I also want to be safe and not get even just the flu. There's a lot of people with lots of colds and whatever, and I'm not down for that.
Yeah, mask up, get your shots, get your booster shots, be safe.
Be healthy, take vitamin C, all those normal things that we used to do before we had the massive crazy diseases when we just had the normal flu, but people still just walked around sick all the time.
Chill out, Alex Jones. I'm not going to use this platform to start peddling bone broth to people.
Bone broth? I said vitamin C. Drink an orange juice, glass of orange juice, just classic stuff. I'm not talking about anything crazy.
Just putting a stop to it now. All right, I'll let you go as far as orange juice.
Well, apple juice is good too, but it doesn't have vitamin C. But
we are not about to get into the logistics of apple v orange. We just don't have that kind of time.
Juice in general, better for you.
Juice in general, preferably mixed with gin.
Yeah. Don't detox though. Detoxes are all a huge lie. They don't make any sense. Your body naturally detoxes. You can't detox your body.
All right, Dr. Oz, that's enough. Let's end this podcast.
Okay. All right. But yeah, so the tournament last week was super fun. I enjoyed watching it. I hope everyone else got a chance to check some of it out. And if they don't, you can usually always go find that coverage still on Twitch and rewatch some of the stuff or check for YouTube. Sometimes I'll go there to catch at least like the top 8 to see the pros or these guys are masters in some sense, really run these decks, and you'll see how the deck's supposed to be run. It's kind of fun sometimes.
100%. When in doubt, if you're not sure how to play a deck, go watch somebody that's better than you. That's the beautiful thing about Magic.
Yes. And so go check that out if you get a chance. We look forward to running into what's coming up with Alchemy next week, as we'll have more of the set spoiled and maybe some more information on different things. Who knows? And we will keep checking back. Thank you for sticking with us to the end of this episode. We're kind of gonna move the format a little bit more focused on standard and historic, and then maybe drop some additional videos with some like brawl gameplay to run through the decks and the cards a little more, than instead of just showing you 100 cards and talking about it for 2 seconds. And possibly the same with limited, doing some live drafts, stuff like that. But still just work through the show. Please give us your comments. Please remember to like, subscribe. If you don't want to watch the videos on YouTube, we are now available on Spotify, Amazon Music, and we should be up on iTunes or Apple Podcasts here pretty soon. But there is an audio only version that will be linked in the comments below and on our Twitter and Instagram. So all the fun stuff. Like, subscribe. Thank you for being a part of the audience. And Walsh, you got anything else you want to add for this week, or you want to just say goodbye to everybody?
Not much for this week, but do keep an eye out on the YouTube page. Me and Dan are going to start getting together and either maybe putting some live games together. So you can always watch us do that, or we'll play some head-to-head matchups via YouTube.
Perfect. Sounds great. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see y'all next week.
All right, take it easy, y'all.